And just as sure as the sky is blue and the grass is green, the one time you decide to play one of those routes and go jump it, it's the time that big post comes and you're a little late on it. The guy gets on your toes. You are watching and listening to the Indy Drills podcast. It's a DB podcast where we talk about pass coverage, secondary technique, all the stuff that you need out there to slow down these passing offenses, as well as the quarterbacks and wide receivers that are a big part of them. Happy to have you here with us. As always, the Indy Drills podcast is sponsored by this great book right here, 101 DB Tips. It's the ultimate DB reference guide. Everything you need to know in there about playing corner, safety, nickelback, man coverage, zone coverage, studying, training in the offseason, everything you need to know to reach your tip top as a defensive back, as a coach of defensive backs, anything in that defensive back realm. Of course, there's stuff in there for you linebackers that have to cover as well. So if this is your first time here, hope you enjoy the show. If you do, please feel free to give us a like at the end, as well as share this video for all of your other pass coverage friends that need some of the info that is in here. On the show today, we are going to talk a little bit of cornerback news. What's the latest? We're going to talk about how cornerbacks, you need to protect yourself in quarters coverage. There is a bunch of quarters being run. You don't need me to tell you that. But the main guys that I see getting exposed in that coverage are the cornerbacks. So we're going to talk a little bit to you today. Of course, our Q&A is going to be in here, or actually our question of the day. I want to say Q&A. Q&A always implies that there will be multiple questions. There will not be multiple questions. There will be one question that I will answer from one of our visitors, as well as we are going to talk about how to cover a route runner. Route runners will drive you absolutely crazy because of their high IQ and ability to manipulate you and get themselves wide open. I'm going to give you guys some very helpful tips on how to handle that route runner today. That and more coming up here on the show. As always, guys, I would love to have some feedback from you guys. So if you've been on this platform for a while, especially you guys watching me on YouTube, and you've had a chance to watch other Indy Drills podcasts or other videos that I've had on here, please take that time to jump into that comment section and drop something for me down there. As always, anything that I talk about here in the show, would love to get you guys' feedback on it. It does help with the content, help me talk about, things in the future, the things that matter to you guys. That's what I'm pretty much here to do, is really solve some of the problems for you guys that you have out there as you're trying to stop some of the very talented pass offenses, quarterbacks, and wide receivers that are out there. And the best way for me to do that is just get feedback from you guys. And the best way to do that is to be in that comment section. So interaction is what we're looking for. Interaction is what we need. Also going to announce, as I put out there last week, who the winner is of the free copy of the 7-on-7 defensive playbook. That stemmed from last week's question of the podcast. And I'm going to choose the person that picked that up in this episode here. So stay tuned for that. All right, let's get into a little defensive back news. I don't go too deep into this area other than to just point out, some of the more important things that are out there. And unfortunately this week is injury. So key injuries to two main guys in their defenses from the secondary. And they just so happen to be two guys that train with me in the offseason that I happen to know. First, for the Pittsburgh Steelers, a main cog in their secondary, guy who kind of is the one who holds all of this together, especially with the trade of Minkah Fitzpatrick out of Pittsburgh over to the Dolphins, and that is DeShon Elliott. If you were watching the Sunday night game between the Packers and the Steelers, you saw DeShon Elliott suffer a knee injury. There is no exact word yet as to what really happened there, but it didn't look good. It seemed almost certain that there was an ACL injury there, hoping for the best. Maybe it is a bone bruise because it was a hyperextension. But either way, he's going to miss a few games here. We're hopeful that he is able to come back this season. That would not be the case if he indeed tears his ACL. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Steelers shuffle around and do there with Elliott out of the lineup. Does that mean more Jalen Ramsey at safety, providing some stability back there with his experience, and we run at corner more with Slay and Porter and other guys, run them through those spots? It's going to be interesting to see what they do in the secondary for the Steelers, who did not have a great day. As a matter of fact, the last two games have not been good for the Steelers defensively. So either way, there were going to be adjustments back there, but now they've got a times at by 2 with Deshaun Elliott being out of the lineup. The other very big injury is to Patrick Surtain, the second PS2, as we all know him, suffered a pec injury in the game this past Sunday against the Dallas Cowboys. There is a word and rumor out there that he might end up on injured reserve, which ends up being 4 to 6 weeks. Hopefully they've averted that, and it's just a week-to-week thing. If he's out, that's going to be very interesting as well, because his mate on the other side, Riley Moss, while he's been able to rack up some numbers in terms of pass breakups, if you really watch the games, it's been a bit of a struggle for him as he's been targeted unmercifully, and you can understand that. He's on the opposite side of what many consider to be the best cornerback in the game right now. And so that just stands to reason that you're going to be targeted more often than maybe any other cornerback in the league, and that's exactly what has happened. And it's kind of been hit and miss with him there. He's racked up a good amount of penalties, so much so that he's getting in these games now, and even when he breaks up a pass, he's, looking around as if a penalty is forthcoming. And, if you've played defensive back and found yourself in that situation, you know how maddening that can be for you. So that is the situation right now in Denver. But if we're going to be running another guy in that position with Patrick Surtain out, what does that mean for Riley Moss? Does Denver now make Riley Moss a CB1 type where he shadows guys, or they just leave it left and right and let it be? I think he would probably, it stands to reason, see less targets now as they, offenses are likely to go after whoever Surtain's replacement is. That's going to just be an interesting development to watch now as the Broncos move into the second half of their season and potentially could be without Surtain for at least 1 or 2 games. If he's on the shelf for 4 to 6 weeks, that turns into be a different situation. And I wouldn't be surprised if Denver went out and tried to find some kind of temporary, solution to that problem, which can mean any of a number of guys. Trade deadline is coming up. They could be in the works for that. Or they grab a free agent off the street. And, the number one name that comes to mind is Asante Samuel Jr., and I'm still puzzled as to why he has not been signed by a team outside of the fact that he does have a neck injury, and that does really make teams afraid, because that can be very fragile. It's football. It's your neck. You're going to tackle. You're going to have some head contact out there, and just how will he hold up against that? But certainly a very solid player, someone who's performed in prime time. If you remember, he had 3 interceptions in a playoff game against Jacksonville. So that is a thought. So some interesting things to come for both of those teams, the Steelers and the Broncos, to see how they handle those key injuries in their secondary. And so we will see how that comes. So we have some great matchups coming up this week. We'll certainly be looking forward to that. And I will, probably have a lot of great content from those matchups coming up this week, as I am compiling some from the game last week. So be looking out for videos on this YouTube channel coming up in the coming week and days with some of the action that took place last week. Let's jump into our first story here, or at least my first segment, the first thing that I want to get to, and that is cornerbacks in quarters coverage. I am a confessed quarters hater. I think it's too passive of a coverage, too many open underneath zones, too many ifs and ands for cornerbacks that can leave them exposed, especially with a lot of quarters being played by cornerbacks with outside leverage, and there's the chance that you'll get help inside from your safety or not. And the way that works is you can sometimes expect that help to come, and the safety sees something different, and now it's you and a wide receiver one-on-one on a big post. And when I say big post means that ball is thrown to the other side of the field once that receiver gets inside of you. It's just not a really, really good feeling. And on top of that, when fans see that drop on you, they automatically think that it was just man-to-man coverage. And the word that they use is you got cooked. Well, I get that that's what it looks like to a fan. Ball's thrown deep, falls in a receiver's hand. Closest person there is going to be the cornerback. So, yeah, you're going to get that cooked label on you, and you just got to hear that. You got to listen to that stuff. Well, there are times where you should have had an inside help on that, and you're kind of playing it that way, and that's not what happens. And, sure enough, it's a touchdown for the team, for the offense. It's a long score, which is especially maddening because you know what fans expect when the offense has the ball deep down in their territory. Hey, we can get a stop here and they punt the ball back to us. We'll have good field position, but here you are giving up an 80, 70, 60-yard touchdown, and it looks bad. For cornerbacks here, and there are coaches that are more and more coaches are living and dying by this quarters because they don't want to give up the big play. They just want to keep things soft. Hopefully the offense will get a sack or will be, they'll fall behind somehow with a penalty. And they want to rely more on thinking the offense can't successfully execute 10 to 12 plays to get into the end zone. So they more want to keep things in front of them, not give up the big play. But, as I've kind of explained here, the big play is very much in play when you're running quarters. Also, with all of the RPOs out there, a lot of coaches feel like the safeties being down and ready for, primary run support versus the RPOs gives them a better chance than, just having one safety deep and relying on corners on the outside or an extra linebacker down in the box. This is just what's being taught at all the clinics, and then this is just what all the teams are running with. I personally would not go that route, but it's not me. It's not me running these defenses. I am not coaching anymore. So if teams are going to run quarters, I'm here to talk to my cornerbacks and to my coaches that are in those systems to help the corners and achieve the goal, which is not giving up that big play. And I'm going to simply say this for the cornerbacks. If you don't have the liberty to line up how you want, all right, let's say that for whatever reason in the coverage, the way that it's run, the defensive coordinator and your defensive back coach wants you to align up with an outside shade, with outside leverage. I'm here to tell you the routes that you need to care about in quarters are the post, the go, and the corner route. So that's the last three and the big three numbers on the route tree. Okay, so if you guys, are familiar with the route tree, and hopefully I can get one posted up here on the screen while I talk. Sorry for you folks that are listening to this podcast on one of your streaming devices. Just maybe perhaps if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, you Google wide receiver route tree and you'll see what I'm talking about. Routes 7, 8, and 9, the big ones, the ones deep down the field. That is what you as cornerbacks need to concern yourself with. What does this mean you end up doing? It means you end up opening your hips sooner out of your pedal in most cases. In most cases, we'll kind of talk about some of your options here, but you open up a little bit sooner. You start running to that post sooner, especially when you observe the route combinations, because you are, as a corner in most of the quarters coverages that are being run, especially if there's another receiver to your side, you are keying what number two is doing. And oftentimes number two's route is going to pretty much give you an indication on what number one's route is. Case in point, you've got two receivers to your side. You're eyeballing the number two receiver. He goes and runs an over route, or he runs a dig at 10, 12 yards. You see him going in there. 9 times out of 10, that is going to be a post route by the number one guy. All right. That in route is to pretty much take that safety that's supposed to help you on the post route out of there. Okay. He's now activated. He's got to go run with that route. And the best way to get that number one guy open is to go run to that area where the safety has vacated from. And now we get a post by a wide receiver who is inside of the outside defensive back, who's lined up in outside leverage. So When you observe that, if you're reading number 2, when you observe that over route, you observe that in route, that dig route, it's time for you to open up and start climbing to that post. Okay. You should be over the top of the wide receiver, and now you just need to start your race to that post. Don't get beat to it. All right. So you start opening up and you're running, and what you want to do is, yes, be ready to make that race, but you don't want to find yourself too far inside, because there's also and always that 7 route. All right. And that is the post corner, where receivers gives you a couple of steps to the post, makes you think that he's going there. You get over anxious. You lose your leverage. Now you're inside, and he plants his foot in the ground and goes back to the corner route. And that'll kill you as well. Most of the time, not a touchdown, but it could be if the ball is placed well by the quarterback. So start climbing to the post with your slight outside leverage, and I mean slight, okay? You don't want to get inside, but you don't want to be too far outside either, because even though you're open and started climbing, you could still get beat if the quarterback places that ball correctly on the other side of the field. All right. The climbing also helps you if it ends up being a go route. Okay. And that's really kind of the route that you're trying to stop when you call quarters anyway. For you coaches out there, you're trying to just stop that deep ball. You're trying to have 4 defenders deep for 4 wide receivers running deep in any type of a 4 wide receiver situation, whether that's 10 personnel, 11 personnel, because tight ends have gotten more athletic these days. They have no problem running them down the field. So the opening up a little bit earlier than normal is going to really help you in that situation against a 9 route.
Parents, dads out there, if you're trying to get your kid to the next level, you're trying to get him to the level of elite skills, you've got to use these resources that I have available to you. One is my book, 101 DB Tips. It's the greatest book out there for DBs. Everything on covering man, playing zone, playing corner, playing safety, how to study film. It's an excellent resource for your young tyke that's trying to become a big-time DB. Also, the All Eyes DB Camp members area is a superpower. Over 200 videos in there on all types of things like how to play coverages, technique, strategy breakdowns, and more. 2 great resources for your young guy if you're trying to get him to the next level. Take advantage of them. Link down in the description below.
And so you just maintain your outside position slightly to cover that 8 and that 7 route. Okay, so what happens in those? The guys that do that give up those out routes, those deep out routes, and they can be maddening. Okay. And this is the bait that happens to you. So you open up early. All right. Receiver through body language sells the post. You open up, he plants, speed outs it at 15 yards, 12, 15 yards, depending on, the offense that you're going against. And sure enough, it's a timing throw. Quarterback takes his 5-step drop, bounces off that back foot, releases it, and that's a 15-yard out route that's caught. And of course, that's going to be on you, because you're probably going to be the first guy that shows up, and people are going to say that you're out there getting cooked. And PFF, with all of their infinite wisdom of how defenses work, will go ahead and say that was on you, despite the fact that you're running quarters and that's not really your route to be on. They'll give that one to you, and they will go ahead and say that you're, a very low-ranked corner, blah, 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 everything else that goes along with the BS of PFF ratings. I could tell you guys not to care about that, but PFF ratings get put everywhere now. You could be watching a Pampers commercial on Monday Night Football, and they throw a PFF rating up on it. They're all over the place because, somehow they've worked it into them, that this being the gospel about player performance. It's not, but can't tell those fans that. Nevertheless, should you be worried about what those fans think? No. And I'm going to reiterate again, that out route is not your problem. You know whose problem that is? The first person whose problem that is the linebacker who has underneath. He needs to get underneath number 1, okay? Coaches a lot of times will give linebackers a pass in quarters. Another reason why I don't love the coverage. No one's really yelling at that outside linebacker who doesn't get his depth, who doesn't climb enough under 1 and allows that ball to go over his head and get caught at the sidelines. That's on him. The next person that's on is the coordinator that called quarters. Sorry, coach. That's the hole in this coverage. And any one of you coaches out there, coordinators out there that are hearing me should hear me well. That's the hole in that coverage. So if you're out there giving your corner any kind of grief or pressure about that particular route being caught, when you also expect him to be stride for stride on a post, a regular post, or in the area to break up a pass or make a stop on a big post where it ends up on the other hash or the other numbers, you're being extremely unrealistic, and you probably didn't play defensive back. You're probably one of these linebacker coaches that are a defensive coordinator, and you somehow, think you understand what goes on back there, understand the pressure that there is back there. But you're not going to get your corner to cover big posts, be where he needs to be on a 9 ball, but also be ready to break up a comeback or a speed out. You can forget that. That's the hole in the coverage. And if teams are running that consistently on you, I suggest you abandon your all quarters theory. Quick, fast, and in a hurry. But for my cornerbacks that are out there, protect yourself against the 7, 8, and 9 route, and you're basically just going to give up those out routes. Here's how you can help yourself. If you suspect, if you're an avid film watcher, and you see the situation come up, you either see the down and distance or you see the formation where that speed out or comeback is a possibility or a reality. It is in your best interest to open your mouth and talk to your outside player, your apex player, whether that is a nickel, a dime back, or a linebacker. Give them some kind of an alert that out route might be coming, that comeback might be coming. That's going to alert them that they do need to take their drop and don't be standing shallow in the flat ready for a screen or a quarterback that's going to scramble who's not really going to scramble. They need to get up under number 1 and be in position to intercept that pass. By the way, for my linebackers that might be listening to this and feel attacked, the easiest interceptions that you're going to get are the ones where you take that deep drop, especially in a coverage like quarters, because a lot of times the quarterback doesn't see you. His eyes are on the deep. His eyes are on the rotation in the secondary, any double teams that might be happening, the route combinations that are happening far down the field. His eyes really are there, and there's a strong chance that he won't see you creeping deeper and deeper and deeper, and will probably just throw the ball right to your face. Take your drops in that. But corners, help yourself, because you're the one that they're going to say got cooked. So here's what happens with cornerbacks. Quarters is being run. A lot of teams will just run quarters consistently over and over and over, and the offense plots on it, and the plot is throwing those deep out and comeback routes. And after you get hit with a couple of those and the receiver's talking crazy to you and his sidelines is talking crazy to you, and maybe your coach has something to say to you about those routes being caught in that coverage, you're going to get tricked into trying to cover one of those. And just as sure as the sky is blue and the grass is green, the one time you decide to play one of those routes and go jump it, it's the time that big post comes and you're a little late on it. The guy gets on your toes. That's when that comes. Now, on top of the couple of big out routes that you gave up, you now gave up a big 60, 70-yard post for a touchdown. We see those routes versus that coverage getting caught every week in college and NFL football. Guaranteed. Just as sure as you're watching this and listening to this right now, you will see a big post completed this weekend on a corner that's playing coverage. Playing quarters coverage. It happens every week. Okay? Don't play that game with yourself. That out route, that comeback, that 5 route on the route tree, all right? If you're looking at that route tree, that's not your business. Okay? That is your neighbor, the husband and wife having an argument out on the front lawn. Then it's none of your business. Go in the house. Got nothing to do with you. Okay? Now, you can call the police. What's that mean for you? Telling that linebacker out. All right. As it's occurring in real time. Okay. I don't know how much that'll help you. I don't know how much you can process that. It'd be great if you could. Out. Hopefully he gets a little deeper, keeps climbing, and goes and picks it off if it's thrown. The best thing to do, though, is alert him beforehand. Hey, be alert on the out. Got a comeback coming. All right. Make sure you get your depth, get your drop. Okay. That's the best thing for you to do. So now it's not a situation where you're just like, all right, I don't care. That route gets caught. At the end of the day, it is a route caught on your defense. It's a tremendous amount of yards gained on your defense. It does not help your team win. So open your mouth, tell that linebacker, nickelback, dimeback, hey, listen, we could be getting an out here. Get your depth, get under one. That's how you help yourself. Don't play this head game where you just try and figure out when that out route is coming and go jump it. Too many dudes have gotten busted and burnt doing that. If they catch 5 of them in a row, they caught 5 of them in a row. Go talk to the linebacker and maybe the coach and be like, hey, coach, they're killing us in quarters, man. Can we just run something else that will help me out there or give me at least the ability to get after that route and not give up something else that's more important in my responsibility? Maybe a good cover 3 that we have, a cover 1 where I could play off, or cover 2, something, coach. They're killing us in that, and I don't want to jump an out route that ends up being a post route. You could do that. And so for all of you coaches out there, I hope you're hearing me on that. Okay, if you've not played in the secondary, I am sharing something with you that us cornerbacks deal with when you run that coverage. It is a big problem for us. You could also do what some schools do, some programs do with quarters, and align that DB inside. Align him with inside leverage with a little bit of a deeper. He's a little deeper. He's at 8 or 9 yards as opposed to 7 yards. Does it kind of open yourself up to the hitch routes? Perhaps it does. And maybe you just are a little bit more savvy as to when you call quarters. But if you are going to line that cornerback up in the inside, it is going to require a little bit more work on their pedal. And I know that's a little scary for some coaches out there trying to teach guys how to back pedal. But if you're good at teaching the pedal and you've got guys who can pedal, you might want to, experiment with aligning that cornerback inside. At least it makes the wide receiver work a little harder to get that inside leverage. He has to stem a little bit harder. That break comes a little bit further, deeper in the middle of the field, and it does shorten the big side of the field. If they do decide to go with a big post route, it does shorten that space there, and it makes it a little bit of a harder throw for that quarterback. He does have to fit it into that big space a little bit more. It's an odder throw. You end up changing the shape of that route a little bit more, and that's something for you to think about. Also, if you're giving your corners the liberty to drive on in routes and maybe curl routes, it does help for them to be inside. Now, I know on some of these deep curl routes, depending on what number 2 does, the safety to that side would be responsible on dropping down on that and making a play on that. But there are route combinations, as offenses have gotten very savvy at attacking quarters coverage, that can pull the safety out of that responsibility and now make it the sole responsibility of the corner. And now there's another route that, can cause him some anxiety in quarters. If you're doing this right, you really just want to make that cornerback responsible for those 3 routes that I've mentioned in the beginning, the 7, the 8, and the 9 route. That's where you could put him at ease. You could keep him from doing something, for lack of a better term, dumb back there that causes the big play to jump off. And then, you can also kind of lean on your safeties a little bit more too when they, see a phantom route or a phantom read in there that keeps them out of their double team. I see that quite often. Make it a point of emphasis that you have to read your keys as a safety, because when you need to provide that double team, you need to be there. Corner is relying on it. It's like being shallow in 2-man as a safety. All right, that cornerback is playing inside and underneath. If that ball goes deep and you're not there, to me, it's seemingly the same thing. You're responsible for that. Okay, you're responsible for being over the top, just like you're responsible for providing that bracket on the corner, with the corner on that wide receiver if he goes to the post, provided that you're read off of number 2 dictates that. I just hate to see when, the read from number 2 doesn't provide that and the safety's doing something else he shouldn't be doing and the corner's running by himself there. All right. So that is my soapbox on the corners and how you protect yourself in quarters coverage. That message is both for the players as well as the coaches. Take to mind and to heart some of the things that I have said here regarding that, because it is indeed quite important for guys in that coverage, because I train a lot of these guys. I hear some of their thoughts about quarters, and it would be nice at times if they could get help from coaches in understanding where they are with that coverage and some of the challenges that they face. Time now for our mailbag, as we do each and every week. Like to get questions from you folks out there about defensive back play. It could be anything that's troubling you, something that's coming up, something that you've always wanted to know about, something about a player, question you just ask me about me in general, and a personal question. I've gotten all of those types of things. Just want to, at this point in time, I did say last week that I would be giving out a free copy of my ebook, The Ultimate 7-on-7 Defensive Playbook, to a random person in the comments of the Indy Drills podcast last week. This is specific for my YouTube audience, and I just want to announce who that winner is now, and that is going to be Bruce Banner. It goes by the name Bruce Banner 8004 on YouTube. You are the winner of the 7-on-7 Defensive Playbook from yours truly. Appreciate all of you guys for participating and making your comments in last week's video. I'm going to run that back again. Once again, this week, I am going to give out a free copy of the Ultimate 7-on-7 Defensive Playbook to a random user that does 2 things. Here's how you get in there. You comment on this episode of the Indy Drills podcast on the YouTube channel that you're watching right now. Sorry if you're streaming. If you're streaming this on one of your listening devices, try your best to go find it on the YouTube if you'd like to get a free copy, or at least be in the running to get a free copy of the 7-on-7 Defensive Playbook. But just make your comment down below. It could be a question. It could be a comment. Any of those would suffice, but you are going to make a comment on this video that you're watching right now, as well as subscribe to this channel. So you've got 2 things that you need to do on this. Bruce Banner did that last week. He was one of several that did. And Bruce, you are the winner of the book. So I'm excited about that. If you would like to have your question read on the next Indy Drills podcast, you can ask that question in the comment section down below, or you can send me an email to cwilson@alleyeasdbcamp.com. This week's question comes from a YouTube user, Jeremiah Gonzalez. I don't have Jeremiah's location, but Jeremiah asked, how can I use receiver size and strength against them? I get bullied at the line and at the catch point by bigger and stronger guys. Hey, first of all, this does not seem like a question that I would get from a teenager, more like a dad who's been watching his son get bullied out on the field. Teenagers usually aren't this forthcoming on a weakness that they may have. If this is, in fact, the teenager asking this, kudos to you for having the awareness and being able to admit to this. The first thing I will tell you, Jeremiah, is you're going to need to get in that weight room, but that doesn't help you this week if that's what you've got coming at you. I'm just saying in general, if you're, a younger player, you do want to get in that weight room because you don't want to find yourself in that situation too many times. It's going to happen, unless you're running around and you're the strongest player in your league constantly from now on. Then yeah, you won't run into that situation, but chances are you will several times during the year. You just don't want to run into it too much, and you can help yourself by being in the weight room. But what are some things you can do immediately right now? This is all going to start with studying. All right. You're going to have to, you're going up against a big wide receiver, a strong guy this week. You're going to need to watch some film because you're going to need to break down this guy and, how he moves. You need to find his weaknesses. You got to find the things that he's not very good at. And you're going to also need to find his strengths, but you already kind of know what those strengths are. You know that he's strong at the line of scrimmage, and he'll probably be strong at the catch point. I noticed something that you said here. I get bullied at the line and at the catch point by bigger, stronger wide receivers. So unless the coverage absolutely positively requires you to press the wide receiver, I would not. I would use what I have to my advantage. So I'm assuming you're a smaller guy. Smaller guy usually means quicker guy. So you may want to play the man coverages that you have this week from an off position and use your superior speed and quickness to cut off the routes and beat that bigger wide receiver to the point, putting yourself in a better position to catch the ball or get your hand on the ball than he does, rather than getting on the line of scrimmage, fighting with him, having him get the jump on you right away because he is stronger, either knock you off balance or stack you or get in a better position down the field. Now you're fighting for position throughout the rest of the route. And when the ball comes, you're not either balanced or in good position to see the ball, and he just wins from that standpoint. That will alleviate probably both of the problems that you're having. You're getting bullied at the line, and then you're getting bullied at the catch point. I think one thing leads to another. If you get bullied at the line, you're off balance, and now you're playing catch up, and you're probably in a little bit of a panic mode. Now, as the ball is coming, you're not in the optimal position to be balanced, jump in the air if you need to, or go make a play on the ball because you're panicking, you're staggering, maybe you're out of control, while he's under control. And on top of him being bigger and stronger than you to begin with, he has better balance and he's calm. And now it's like a double whammy for you. So if you can avoid some of those press situations, because that's a strength for him and a weakness for you, you can now play off and kind of even things up a little bit. Now, playing off is maybe a better strength for you in this situation because bigger, stronger wide receivers, especially at the younger ages, have a hard time stopping once they start. They have a hard time getting out of their cuts. They're not as quick, and you can use that against him. All right, we're asking how you can use his strength, size, and strength against him. This is how you're using it against him. You force him to be a route runner. You force him to get in and out of his breaks ahead of you, the quicker guy. You force him to try and get to the spot and move you off of the spot because you're beating him there on the deep throws. Hopefully you can draw some pass interference penalties while you're there. And let's be savvy about things. Bigger wide receivers sometimes will try to bully you and commit penalties in the process. And if you're not getting those calls, and I recommend that you do this early in the game, if you feel like you're being violated, for lack of a better term, you feel like the rules are being broken here for him to get in position to make those catches, you tell that referee pretty early. Don't even wait for a time where it's up, the ball comes your way. If he ran around and he shoved off on you, or he ran around and the ball came his way, and let's say it was thrown out of bounds and incomplete, don't sit there and think, well, all right, well, there was no harm, no foul on this. The ball went out of bounds. No, you point out to that referee in a diplomatic way. Don't talk to him like he's crazy. You talk to him and let him know, hey, ref, can you watch the push off here on that? Or ref, he grabbed my face mask. Or ref, he slapped me in the helmet. You know, all the things that big wide receivers do to try and exert their dominance on you mentally and physically early in the game.
If you're a brand new coach and you've been thrusted into a job and you're kind of overwhelmed, I've got a great resource for you. The All Eyes DB Camp members area will get you up to speed so you can get your guys in the right position to make plays and make you look like an all-star coach. I've got everything in there from quizzes, coverages explained, technique breakdowns, strategy sessions, everything you need to ramp up your coaching ability and turn your guys into playmakers. Hit the link down below. Come join us in the All Eyes DB Camp members area. Greatness awaits you.
When those things occur and they're outside of the rules of the game, you make that known to that referee right away. You let him know right away this is that, so they can just have an extra eye on things. Because if you guys have read a rule book for the game of football, a ref has a lot of things to look at. If you can divert some of his attention to this thing that's happening there, you might be able to get a call or two that is warranted at some point later on in the game might be in a crucial situation where a receiver, pushed you in the back, pushed off as the ball was coming, or did something else against the rules. So that's another way that you can help yourself. But all of this is going to start with you studying and preparing. The other thing too about studying and preparing is it's going to give you a better idea of what route is coming. Anticipation is going to be your friend against a big wide receiver. If you're studying splits or down and distance or whatever the clues are that you're able to pick up in the route in the film study, you can anticipate where a route's going to be and kind of be there a step before him, set up, position yourself, and now he's got to get through you to get to that football. And again, he might, might cause him to commit a penalty to get there, to get you off of the spot. Your whole idea, your whole thing that you're trying to do here is beat him to the spot. So if he's running an out route, use your quick feet, your ability to read, and your anticipation to beat him to that out route, beat him to that spot. So it's not you having to go through him, it's him having to go through you. Put yourself in a better position to get your hands on the ball, get the ball down, and do those things, especially on the deep routes. So knowing based off of a split or something that's happening post snap or the down and distance, location, whatever clues you're getting to try and decipher what play is coming, knowing that that post route is coming can allow you to go start to that post before him. And wouldn't it be better for you to get to that spot in the post and be able to set up and jump where that ball is landing rather than chasing him to that spot, potentially being off balance, and him being the one to rise up, comfortably while you're trying to catch up and turn your head and jump off balance to try and slap the ball down from a stronger guy? That's not the situation you want to be. So anticipation and quickness is going to be your friend, and that's going to come from study hard this week. You're at a physical disadvantage, so you're going to use a brain advantage. You're going to use an IQ advantage, and that's going to come from your studying. So hope that helps you out, Jeremiah, and go take down that big guy. Once again, if you have a question that you would like read on the next Indy Drills podcast, go ahead and drop it in the comments section down below or send me an email to cwilson@allicedbcamp.com. By the way, for your question this week, I'm going to randomly select someone out of the comment section, and you are going to receive a free copy of the Ultimate 7-on-7 Defensive Playbook. So a good reason for you guys to drop your question in that comment section down below. All right, time for us to move on to our last segment here, and that is how to cover a route runner. The type of receiver that would give me trouble, the most trouble when I was playing, was the route runner. I could cover the speed guys. I could run. I didn't have as much of a problem with the bigger wide receivers that we just discussed just now. Didn't have as much of a problem with those guys because, I would do my fair amount of studying there. And I was fairly strong for my size, so big wide receivers wouldn't give me as much trouble. What was a headache for me were the route runners, the guys that understood what my job was and would use my responsibilities and what my tendencies were against me to manipulate me during the route and get themselves open. They were a bit of a headache for me. And while they were a challenge, I must admit, didn't care to see those guys. They were very, very annoying. However, for you guys that are watching this right now, I had a good amount of experience against them, and through trial and error, started to get better against the route runners. And so, I was able to develop some strategies that could help me. So thanks to all of the route runners that were out there. And for some of you old heads out there, some of the guys that come to mind that I had to cover that were pretty good route runners was first of all a guy by the name of Lamar Thomas that played at the University of Miami while I was there. Extremely great route runner, high IQ, knew how to manipulate you. Had to cover Marvin Harrison from when he was at Syracuse. Pretty good route runner there. Also had to cover a guy by the name of Kes McCorvey that played at Florida State, an extremely good route runner, a guy with a very high IQ. Then coming in the pros, had to cover a guy by the name of Ricky Prohl and Brian Blades, two very good savvy route runners, and these were the guys that caused the headache. And then, there are always, for you guys that have been in NFL training camps, there's always a guy that you just didn't know anything about him, but he was out there on that roster running around, and he wasn't carrying a big name, wasn't signed to a multi-million-dollar contract, but golly, that guy could run routes. And, he's out there cooking folks, and he's not even the number one or number two receiver. So that just gives you a certain amount of anxiety. So there were a couple of those guys. So I learned a lot having to go up against those guys. And stop me if you've heard this before, but your biggest weapon against those guys is studying. They've studied you, okay? Route runners are guys that study. They're not out there solely on their athletic ability. They already understand that they're not the fastest, they're not the biggest, they're not the strongest. So the way that they make up for it is studying, and they're studying you and what you are doing and what you need to do and what your tendencies are. Jerry Rice, highly considered as the GOAT of the wide receiver game, was a 4.6, 4.7 40 when you put him on the clock. Because of that, when everyone else is running 4.4s, he knew he was a 4.6, 4.7. He studied the game. He studied route running as an art, as a science, and he knew what DBs had to do. And there were few people better at manipulating the defensive back than a guy like Jerry Rice. And how's he able to do that? He studied and knows what your job is. You must now return that favor. You've got to study these guys and understand that the more you study, the more that you realize there are restrictions for a wide receiver on any given play. He can't line up wherever he wants. He doesn't have all day to get off of the line of scrimmage. He can't run to whatever depth he wants to run that route. He can't just do whatever. Now, there have been combinations of receivers and quarterbacks in the game at the highest level who have cooked up routes in the middle of a game or maybe even in the middle of a play. Okay, that will happen. Take your hat off to them. That'll happen. And even in that, they have some tendencies. But once you really get to studying and understand that there are limitations, there are certain ways that they have to line up, there's a certain amount of steps and yards that they have to take to get to a depth, and there's a certain way that they got to run the routes, things start to get a little bit easier for you. So studying is going to be your number one weapon, okay? Understanding those limitations and the things that they have to do. They know your tendencies and your responsibilities. You need to know their limitations. They lined up in a certain spot for a certain reason. They exit off the line of scrimmage a certain way for a reason, and they do what they do throughout the route for a reason. Learn and understand those things, and the more you watch them, the more you will pick up the tendencies. You may even just pick up a little small something that they didn't even notice, an adjustment of the feet, the way they align the feet at the line of scrimmage, or something they do with their hands, or even messing with the gloves. The more you watch, you're going to notice something. Human beings are creatures of habit. You might pick up something. I often make baseball analogies. There'll be some of the best pitchers out there, and they'll just take one batter who figures out something that lets him know what pitch is coming. Just the way that a ball is held in the glove, where the glove is, how wide the glove is, how small the glove is, tells him what pitcher. Just always something, because we're creatures of habit, especially in something as intense as athletic competition. There's a lot of stress in athletic competition. And to alleviate stress for people, they have routines. And they have things that they do consistently to alleviate that stress. If you study enough, you'll pick up what those things are. So I mean intensive study if you're really trying to do this thing. That's number one. Number two is typically, supreme route runners are not blessed with Olympic type speed. So if you've got decent speed, or you know that you're faster than that wide receiver, it's in your best interest to stay square and true to your technique as long as possible. So if you're a guy that's playing off, you could stay in that pedal a little bit longer. You don't need to turn and run out of that. Almost dare the guy to go deep. Now he will, but you can hold that pedal longer. You can stay square longer at the line of scrimmage because there's a little less fear of you getting outrun should things get a little bit closer than you want them to be. So if he gets outside of you in press, because you're holding that kick slide a little bit longer, there's less of a fear that he's going to beat you over the top than if you're going up against some kind of 100-meter champion. Okay. So you can hold that squareness a little bit longer. You can stay in that pedal and stay square longer because there's less of a fear that if he does explode up the field, that you won't be able to get back to his hip, as opposed to when you're covering that 100, 200 meter track champion. Okay. You hold that longer. What does that do for you? It allows you to wait out the moves. They will push the depth. Route runners will get to their depth more often than those track guys. They're in a hurry, the track guys, to get out of their routes. Those route runners will run to that depth and they'll even push it. They'll also give you multiple moves. If you're in the mindset of staying square, you don't commit to those early moves and you can kind of hang for that second and third move that's coming. These are the things that route runners need to do to get open. They can't just give you the one plant and go, because they're not going to separate and run away from you. They understand this. They know this. So through deception and multiple moves, they can get themselves open. So if you can keep yourself square longer, you can defeat those multiple moves and the manipulation that they do at the top of routes, because you're staying square and you're not overcommitting to that first move. You're not overcommitting to the first move at that line of scrimmage the way you might against a track guy who just puts his foot in the ground and takes off and runs. The route runners will go outside, inside, and shake you back inside. Now the triple moves at the line of scrimmage. And they're hoping that you open and commit too soon and they just run behind your back and manipulate you. You know, the type of stuff Antonio Brown did and made a whole career out of in Pittsburgh when he was acting right. He would get behind your back. He was a route runner because he was not a speed guy. He was not a 4-3 receiver. And so he was really good at running his routes and manipulating DBs to open and then getting behind their back. If you don't buy into that and you hold your square longer, you stay square longer, makes it more difficult for that guy to operate. You're taking away a serious tool from him. So that's the second thing that you can do to really help yourself against a route runner. And then the final thing is fully understanding where your help is. Even when you're in man coverage, you have help. So if you're in cover one, your help is in the post, sometimes in the hook area, sometimes in that low hole area. Understand that. If you're in two-man and you're supposed to be playing inside and underneath, don't get duped. Play inside and underneath. Your help is over the top. Chase him to your help over the top. If you're in some kind of a match coverage where you could potentially get help from someone, play to that help, hold your leverage, and play the coverage the way that it needs to be. That is a kryptonite against a route runner, because the route runner knows your coverage. Okay, he's a study guy. He understands what your coverage is on defense and where you're supposed to be. His whole tool is to trick you into thinking something is going to happen in his route, to pull you away from your leverage, get you out of your responsibility, and then go attack that area where you're supposed to be. Understand your coverages, where you're supposed to be, where your help is coming from, and you can squeeze that route runner to your help. And if he's trying to attack your area that you're supposed to be in, he's got to go back through you to get to that area. You can attach to his hip, be there, and now you win on your superior physical traits. But if you're going to get tricked and have that guy pull you to the inside when you also have help to the inside and he breaks back outside, now he's made a fool of you, because the two of you guys are on the inside and he's outside by himself. Okay. You've got to know where your help is. So, and I mention that because some guys will go out there and be like, well, coach told me I have outside leverage, but they don't really know where your inside help is coming from. Is it going to be early? Is it going to be late? Do I even have inside help? He's just telling me to be outside leverage. Sometimes you might play outside leverage and not have inside help. That'll happen in a couple of coverages. If you know you don't have that inside help, then you can go drive that route harder. But if you know you have inside help there, you don't have to drive it as hard. You can just squeeze it a little more, squeeze into the help, and then now you can use another player to help you cover this guy that has supreme route running ability. Okay, so let's review on the things that are going to help you here against a route runner. Number one is study. I know that's hard, and that seems to be my answer for everything. I need you to catch on to that you've got to study in this game. Yes, I get it that you lift a bunch of weights, you do a bunch of drills, and you do a bunch of running. That's all great. It means nothing if you don't study the game, because you're doing all the physical stuff to be able to handle making a play when you get to the right spot. But how do we get to the right spot? By having a brain that works. When we up that brain power, By studying. Okay. By studying, we know where to be. By studying, we know where we're supposed to go, and we use our speed to get there faster. And if we know where we're supposed to be when we get there, all of that weightlifting helps us make the play when we're actually there. But how do we actually get to know and get to the area and know where we're supposed to be to make that play? By using our brain. So studying is going to be a big part of everything. Oh, and by the way, it does help you immensely against a route runner. You're going to have to study because he's studying you. Number 2 is stay square as long as possible. Okay. A route runner is full of moves. They're tricky. They rarely is that first move the move. Okay. They will go double move. They'll go triple move. They'll go quadruple move if there's good protection. So the longer you can stay square, the more you can hang with the double and the triple and the excessive moves that are going to come both at the line of scrimmage and at the top of the route. You want to be able to hold your back pedal longer. You want to be able to hold that kick slide longer. Or if you're a guy that's a soft pedal guy, maybe you can hold that motor a little bit longer against a route runner that's just trying to dupe you, get you open, and find your back. Delay that as long as possible. The pressure is on that wide receiver. He doesn't have all day to run his route. He doesn't have all day to get to his depth. That quarterback is under pressure from your defensive line. So keep that in mind. And then the final piece to all of this is understanding your defense and where your help is coming from. A lot of times, 2 guys are better than 1. And in a lot of coverages, there is help there for you where you could squeeze a route runner to another guy that's going to help you in it. Does no good for you to not totally understand how your defense works, and you end up in an area providing help where help is already there for you. All right. So if you've got assistance inside, no need to jump inside when that route runner starts making you feel like he's going to go in there and then he goes back outside. Because I've seen that 100 times. You're supposed to be outside, squeeze him to your help inside. And we use 2 guys to cover 1. Maybe that's a shot to your ego, but who cares, man? You're trying to win the rep. You know, for you guys that really think, oh, it's one-on-one, it's not one-on-one. Okay. It's not. The quarterback and the receiver are against you. That's 2-on-1 every time. So if you've tricked yourself, yeah, I know there's a drill that we call one-on-ones. It's not one-on-ones, man. It's 2-on-1, quarterback and receiver versus you. So don't ever feel funny or like you're less of a man because you used another guy to help you in coverage. You squeezed a wide receiver to a linebacker or a nickel back that was helping you, or to a safety in the post that's helping you. That's the biggest myth that there is out there. It's always 2-on-1 against you. So why not get help from a safety or a linebacker or a nickel back or the sidelines? We're going to make it 2-on-2. All right. We're going to make it 2-on-2. So forget about your ego. Use your help in coverage. Those are the 3 things that are going to help you guys when you are playing against a route runner. Yes, I know they are annoying. They are annoying as hell. Use those tips. Take it from someone who's been to hell and back covering route runners. This is the way to even up the score and give yourself a better chance against those guys that are very smart players that know how to manipulate you. Don't get manipulated. Study them like they study you. All right. Hope that helps you guys on that. And that moves us to the end of this episode of the Indy Drills podcast. I really do appreciate you guys tuning in each and every week to get the wisdom on this. I also hope that you guys take the lessons here and then decide to level up. I've got 2 great things for you. First, I've already talked about it, is this book right here, 101 DB Tips, an excellent resource for you to have in your home or at your fingertips to reference just about each and every day. The guys that do this the best, I've spoken to many, many people who have grabbed a copy of this. They read a tip a day out of there. And if you just read a tip a day, it's consistency. You're just going to get better. You're going to learn something new every day, or you're going to get reminded about something every day, and you're going to apply it to your game, and you just get incrementally better. And that's just how you improve your game. Or join the All Eyes DB Camp members area. I have over 300 posts in there explaining coverages, talking about technique, talking about strategy. There's quizzes in there. There's teach tape. And we've got a whole community of coaches and players and parents in there talking about defensive back play. It's a great place for you to be to improve your game. If you have that along with this book, there's just no way you're not going to be a better player. And I'm assuming everyone in here wants to be a better player or coach. Those are two great resources. If you have one by itself, great job. If you've got two, you're doing what it is you need to do to be the best that it is at your game. I'll have links to both of them down in the description below. That's it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And until next time, all eyes DB camp, consistency breeds results.